In the anime series Frieren Beyond Journey's End, Frieren herself is obviously the main focus. Yeah, she's the main character. But another character who unexpectedly stole the spotlight is Himmel. Despite being a supporting character whose struggles were never fully shown on screen, Himmel became incredibly popular, so much so that he won Best Supporting Male Character at the Anime Fall 2023 Awards, even beating Nanami from Jujutsu Kaisen. His popularity went even further. The song Blue by Young Kai somehow became associated with Himmel, and honestly, the vibe fits him perfectly.
でも、一番の理由は、君が未来で一人ぼっちにならないようにするためかな。
何それ？
おとぎ話じゃない。僕たちは確かに実在したんだ。
Around that time, there were also trends online where people used the word Frieren as a kind of justification for doing something kind or gentle, as if being emotionally sincere was suddenly very Frieren-coded. In this segment, we're diving deep into Himmel, a hero who isn't just a symbol of strength, but a moral and philosophical compass within this masterpiece. Frieren Beyond Journey's End, just like its title suggests, begins where most fantasy stories usually end. We're introduced to a hero party that has already completed their sacred mission: the hero, Himmel, the steadfast warrior, Eisen, the priest, Heider, and of course, our elven mage, Frieren. The emotional turning point of the story is the aura meteor shower, a celestial phenomenon that occurs only once every 50 years. It becomes the backdrop for their farewell. For Frieren, who is immortal, 50 years feels like a blink of an eye, barely worth worrying about. To her, it's just a casual promise to meet again. But for her human companions, 50 years is the rest of their lives. When they finally reunite, time has taken everything it could from them: their youth, their strength, leaving behind aging bodies and heavy steps. The meteor shower isn't just a beautiful visual, it's a brutal metaphor for time itself, fleeting, breathtaking, unforgettable, and impossible to hold on to. For Frieren, human lives are brief flashes of light, but for humans, that flash is everything. Himmel dies not long after that final reunion. It feels as if he used every last breath, every ounce of willpower for one final purpose: to see Himmel one last time and remember their journey together before passing on. And it's at his funeral that Frieren's emotional mask finally begins to crack. Frieren is an anomaly, the complete opposite of what we usually expect from an adventure protagonist. Typically, heroes are emotionally expressive, driven by passion and explosive motivation. Frieren isn't like that. She's emotionally distant, a cold observer in a warm world. But through the tears she sheds at Himmel's grave, we realize something important. Frieren was never empty. She was just late. She only understands someone's value once they've already become part of history. Let's break this down logically. The 10 years they spent defeating the Demon King didn't even make up 1% of Frieren's lifespan. From a purely rational standpoint, those 10 years should have been insignificant, just a footnote in her thousands of memories. But time doesn't follow logic when it comes to the heart. Frieren and we as the audience are forced to confront a harsh truth. The value of a relationship isn't defined by how long it lasts, but how deeply someone reshapes your soul. Himmel may have existed for a moment in Frieren's endless life, but he left a mark that thousands of years could never erase. Frieren's regret reflects one of our deepest fears, the fear of realizing how precious someone was only after the seat across from us is empty. Many viewers mistakenly believe Frieren has no emotions. That couldn't be more wrong. We see her laugh, get annoyed at mimics, and experience warmth. Frieren isn't a robot, she's just emotionally distant. And honestly, that distance makes sense. Imagine living for thousands of years. Forming deep emotional bonds with people who live only a fraction of that time would be a curse. It would be a recipe for eternal suffering. Watching every friend, every loved one, every student grow old and die while you remain unchanged. Frieren's emotional coldness is her shield, but Himmel managed to pierce it. Through small memories, like the way Himmel picked flowers, or how he knelt down to put a ring on someone's finger, we see that Frieren remembers everything. She didn't forget, she just never had time to process it. Later, when she meets Eisen again, he tells her that her regret over losing Himmel is something she needs to confront directly. To truly understand Himmel, Eisen suggests that they meet him in heaven, Aurora, located in Ende, based on records left behind by Flam, her mentor from 1,000 years ago. Through Frieren's memories, we slowly come to know Himmel as the leader of the hero party, the man who, alongside Eisen, Heider, and Frieren, defeated the Demon King and ushered in an era of peace. Even his name, Himmel, comes from German, meaning heaven. It perfectly matches his blue aesthetic and his calm, gentle personality, as if he himself were a living embodiment of the sky. Frieren's journey to Hende, once the Demon King's castle and the rumored location of Aurora, is both literal and symbolic. It's a journey to meet Himmel in heaven, mirroring the adventure they once shared. Poetically, Frieren is trying to reach heaven within heaven, to reach Himmel in Himmel. Heaven lives on in Himmel's personality and in the way he treated everyone he met. He connected easily with others, formed deep interpersonal bonds, and carried an unwavering dedication to protecting people. And this is why Himmel will never truly fade. This influence is clearly reflected in Heider's decision to save Fern from despair, raise her as his own child, and act the way he believed Himmel would have in the same situation. But the greatest impact is seen in Frieren herself throughout nearly her entire journey. Again and again, we see Frieren choosing to do small, kind things, taking the time to appreciate and understand the people around her, simply because she knows that hero Himmel would have done the same. Through Himmel, Frieren comes to realize that truly knowing the people close to us takes time, and that time matters. Even though Frieren is often slow to notice the emotions of those around her, she always reaches that understanding eventually, because deep down, she does care. She cares about the people beside her, just as Himmel would have in the same situation. One of the most fascinating aspects of Himmel's story is the fact that he was unable to pull the hero's sword from the stone. According to legend, only a true hero could draw that sword, and the fact that Himmel failed seems to prove that he was a false hero. But what truly makes us stop and think is what he says afterward. Even if he couldn't fulfill the narrative of what people believed a true hero should be, that didn't mean he couldn't become one. And when you really think about it, the question of whether someone is a true or false hero isn't as important as the impact they leave behind. Himmel had a clear and noble purpose. Whether people saw him as legitimate or not, he was determined to live by his own words, and he succeeded. The fact that he defeated the Demon King using an ordinary sword instead of the hero sword proves that his victory didn't come from borrowed power or legendary tools, but from who he was as a person. Himmel is a true hero, just as Heider is a true priest, not because he claimed moral superiority or spiritual transcendence, but because he never placed himself above others. And Eisen, too, never framed his actions as the result of pure bravery alone. In the end, Himmel becomes a true hero regardless of whether he ever truly drew the hero sword. What matters is that people believed he did, that he defeated the Demon King and brought an era of peace to the world. And that belief alone turns his story into a powerful legend. Another layer that makes Himmel such a compelling character is his narcissistic side. Several times we see him openly calling himself handsome, even in old age. He clearly loves his own appearance, spending time admiring himself in mirrors, almost as if he weren't the man who saved the world. Through Frieren's memories, we even see him spending hours creating statues of himself. For some reason, he seems almost obsessed with being remembered, with fame and recognition. This makes Himmel a walking contradiction. On the surface, it can feel like he does everything for himself, but at the same time, he does it for everyone else. He is both egoistic and altruistic at once. And in reality, that contradiction feels deeply human. As Nietzsche suggested, we as complete beings often live in contradiction. Himmel isn't like the flawless heroes we've been conditioned to see in stories and media. For a long time, we were taught that a hero must always be good, always perfect. But Himmel isn't perfect. He feels like an ordinary man who simply wanted to become a hero. And somehow that makes him easier to relate to. We understand his emotions more clearly because they feel human. Maybe that's what a true hero really looks like. Not just someone who saved the world by defeating the Demon King, but someone who consistently tries to leave a positive impact wherever they go. It doesn't matter whether he did it for himself or for others. What matters is the influence he left on everyone without exception. That's what makes him feel like the kind of friend everyone wishes they had. A role model. Later on, Himmel finally explains his true reason in a deeply personal conversation with Frieren, when she asked why he kept making statues of himself. Time, one of the most powerful forces in this story, is portrayed as something that ultimately closes every human life. Time decides how long we exist in this world and eventually pulls us into nothingness when our moment comes. And as painful as that reality is, it's also what gives life its meaning. Because we exist under time, we're forced to assign meaning to this incredibly short existence. The fact that life ends doesn't make it something to curse, it makes it something to treasure, because we know it won't last. The way Himmel chose to value his time was by giving himself to others. He treated everyone he met with kindness, took the effort to truly know them, understand what they liked, what they felt, and what they carried inside. He made every moment, no matter how brief, feel meaningful. It's true that Himmel wanted to become a legend, a hero remembered for saving the world. Maybe that's why he did everything he did, his kindness, his struggles, his victories, all to make his name last. But the deeper we look, the more we realize fame wasn't his only motivation. There was something far more beautiful beneath it all, something deeply sincere. He shared this truth with Frieren, and by remembering him, carrying his memory forward into the future, Himmel doesn't remain just a fairy tale or folklore. He becomes real. Maybe Himmel won't be remembered forever. Maybe centuries from now, no one will remember his name at all. Maybe the statues he built with his friends will crumble, and maybe Frieren herself will eventually disappear someday too. But that doesn't matter. Not right now. What matters in this moment is the comfort that comes from knowing we will be remembered. There's a deeply touching story that captures this idea when the hero party meets Foal, a dwarf who has protected a village for an incredibly long time. He explains that he does it because he promised to protect the village his wife loved. The fact that someone will remember us is an act of rebellion against mortality itself. Being remembered allows something fleeting to become eternal. Himmel first met Frieren when he was lost in the forest, unsure of how to find his way home. Frieren appeared by chance and simply pointed him towards civilization. Throughout their journey, it becomes clear that Himmel quietly harbored feelings for Frieren, feelings she never fully noticed. Himmel wanted to be remembered by her. He loved Frieren, and he never once asked for anything in return. And from Frieren's side, there is something uniquely special about how she remembers him. As someone who has lived watching time move impossibly fast, Frieren holds tightly to the small moments she shared with Himmel and the others. It's beautiful, yet also painfully aware that her realization might have come too late. But that no longer matters. What matters now is that this realization allows Frieren to better understand humanity and human emotions. And for us as viewers, the lesson is incredibly valuable. Within the short time we call life, one of the most beautiful things we can do is remember people and the small moments we shared with them. Every step of Frieren's journey feels like a memory, not sadness, but nostalgia, a longing filled with appreciation. The same nostalgia Frieren feels when she sees Himmel's statues and meets the people he once helped. It's deeply moving. The emotions are heavy yet strangely calming, inviting reflection. And when Frieren takes responsibility for Fern, she can no longer live the way she once did, because now she understands the time she once treated as endless, time she could casually waste, might mean everything to someone else. Back then, when Frieren's party missed their chance to watch the sunrise, she couldn't understand why everyone was so disappointed. She didn't see what made it so special. But later on, she chooses to do it again, this time with Fern, when they're given another opportunity. Even though Frieren still feels that the sunrise itself isn't that impressive, at the very least she gets to spend time with someone who believes it is. And that in itself is something incredibly beautiful. It's exactly the kind of thing Hero Himmel would have done. Frieren often buys unnecessary items on impulse. She collects extremely specific spells that at first glance seem completely useless. Magic for removing rust from statues, creating ice shavings without syrup, even magic that turns sweet wine sour. To us, it looks pointless, but later we come to understand why she does it. She collects these spells because her friends, or more accurately her family, loved them. Hyder liked ice, Eisen preferred sour wine, and Himmel loved making statues of himself. Frieren teaches us how to live in the present moment. No matter what kind of journey they're on, whether they're fighting monsters, waiting out a snowstorm, or simply sharing a meal, the story constantly pulls us into the now. It doesn't trap us in endless nostalgia filled with regret, nor does it rush us toward an anxious future. Frieren doesn't need a grand challenge or an urgent mission to justify her journey. She wants to go to heaven, a place she isn't even sure truly exists, to meet Himmel and her companions again. And even though that is their main goal, whether they actually reach it or not doesn't feel like the end of the world. Unlike many other stories, this one doesn't rely on massive threats or world-ending stakes to stay compelling. From one village to the next, step by step, Frieren slowly retraces the journey she once took with the original hero party, now alongside Fern, Stark, and the companions she meets along the way. We never truly see the full journey of the original hero party in real time, but through Frieren's travels and through her promise to remember them, we come to understand them deeply. Through Stark, we learn that Eisen's true strength comes from humility, not pride, challenging our usual image of what a warrior is supposed to be. From him, we learn that courage often comes from fear itself. You can't be brave unless you're afraid first. What makes Eisen and Stark true warriors is their ability to keep fighting even when fear is so overwhelming that their bodies resist it, their hands shaking as they push forward anyway. From Fern, we learn that her cynicism was always just a mask, a wall built to protect her natural softness, and through her we realize that Hyder had been doing the same all along. Despite being described by others as a corrupt, manipulative, alcohol-loving priest, he was hiding a genuinely kind heart beneath it all. We see how he redeems himself by raising and caring for Fern. From all of them, we learn what it truly means to understand and appreciate the idea of a journey. When we make mistakes or miss opportunities, we often fall into deep regret, wishing we could change everything instantly. We start to believe that if we can't fix things right away, it means we failed as human beings. But that isn't true. Change takes time, and sometimes it simply can't happen as fast as we want it to. Frieren, a being who has witnessed the rise and fall of kingdoms and the passing of entire eras over 1,000 years, still needed a profound loss to truly wake up. It's a painful irony. The one person with the most time in the world is the slowest to understand the value of a single moment. Frieren had to feel the cold stone of Himmel's gravestone to understand the warmth of his hand when he was still alive. She had to be left in silence to realize how loud and meaningful Hyder's laughter and the sound of Eisen's axe truly were. From this small group, we don't just learn how to defeat a demon king, we learn the value of having something to lose, the courage it takes to love something we know will eventually disappear, and most importantly, the importance of facing life's hardest moments together, as a family. This lesson is universal. We don't need to be reincarnated into a fantasy world or wield magic to understand it. We only need to look around and make sure we're surrounded by the right people. Just like Frieren was fortunate enough to be found by Himmel, or Fern found her home with Frieren. The reason we all fell in love with Frieren beyond Journey's End isn't because of explosive spells like Zoltrak or massive monster designs. Its true appeal lies in things we often dismiss as boring in real life. In a world filled with dragons and curses, the story chooses to pause, just to watch the sunrise. It invites us to see characters weaving flower crowns, enjoying dessert while watching the sunset, dancing in an empty hall, or quietly reading books in a dusty library corner. It's a wake-up call for those of us living in a fast-paced modern world. We're constantly chasing happiness through big achievements, prestigious titles, or material success. But through Frieren's eyes, we're reminded that the happiness we've been searching for might be hiding in the small, seemingly insignificant moments we overlook. Happiness lives in the journey itself, not the destination. And this is where we must talk about Himmel. Himmel isn't just a character, he's the embodiment of the core moral message of this masterpiece. Why did Himmel insist on building statues of himself in every town? Not because he was arrogant, but because he didn't want Frieren to feel alone after he was gone. He wanted to leave traces of himself behind, so Frieren would always have an anchor in the human world. Himmel understood something Frieren didn't at the time, that life is about knowing and cherishing others, knowing what they like, respecting their fragile emotions, and doing the simplest yet hardest thing of all, walking beside them sincerely through this short journey called life. Himmel represents a form of love that isn't selfish, a love that continues to give even when it knows it won't be around to see the results. Ultimately, Himmel teaches us that being a hero isn't about wielding a legendary sword. It's about the courage to be meaningful to someone else. He shows us that the length of a life doesn't determine the size of the impact it leaves behind. Himmel may have lived only a few decades compared to Frieren's thousands of years, yet he became the single reason Frieren is now willing to walk thousands of miles towards Areola, the land where souls are said to rest. The journey towards heaven in this story isn't about discovering new miracles, it's a journey to say the words that were spoken too late. Through Himmel, we learn that every second spent truly listening to someone, every moment shared in laughter, is the most powerful form of magic there is. Himmel may be gone, but Hero Himmel will never truly die as long as Frieren and all of us choose to cherish every small moment as if it were a once-in-50 years meteor shower. Because in the end, we are all travelers on our way to our own version of heaven, and the only thing worth carrying with us is the memory of how we loved and how we were loved.
So we have to ask the final valid question. Is Himmel a hero? If your definition of a hero is someone born with a glowing soul, a destiny written in the stars, and a divine mandate to save the world, then the answer is a cold, hard no. By those standards, Himmel is a fraud. He is a spectacular fake. He is a guy with a prop sword, a carefully maintained haircut, and a brilliant marketing plan. He is an imposter who sat on the throne of a legend he didn't technically qualify for. But here is where we need to look closer. In our modern world, we are obsessed with authenticity. We're told constantly to be ourselves. But Himmel's life poses a radical, almost dangerous counterargument. What if who you are isn't nearly as important as who you choose to be? Himmel's fakery was not a lie told for selfish gain. It was a form of extreme, lifelong discipline. It was an act of service. Think about the psychological toll of carrying a fake hero's sword for 10 years while facing literal demons. Every time he stood in front of a village knowing he wasn't the chosen one, he was making a choice. He was choosing to be the shield those people needed, even if the universe hadn't given him the permit to do so. That isn't just faking it, that is the ultimate human flex. That is taking a reality that rejected you and forcing it to accept your terms. In America, we love the self-made man, but Himmel is the self-made myth. He understood that humanity doesn't just need protectors, we need symbols, we need stories. We need a handsome man in a blue cape to smile and tell us everything will be okay, even if that man is internally screaming because he knows his sword is just a piece of metal and he could die in the next 5 seconds. This is the heroic mask, and what makes it so heart-wrenching is that Himmel never took the mask off, not even for Frieren, especially not for Frieren. He knew that if he showed his weakness, if he admitted he was just a guy, the magic of the journey would break. He performed the role of the perfect, romantic, invincible hero so that Frieren, a being who had seen nothing but the cold passage of centuries, could finally see something worth remembering. He wasn't just faking a legend for the world, he was faking a meaning for her. He created a highlight reel of a life filled with statues and flower crowns and silly poses because he knew that's the only way he could stick to her memory. He was carving his existence into her heart with a dull, fake blade. Think about the ring scene again in this context. He kneels, he puts a ring on her finger, he looks at her with a gaze that could melt glaciers. To Frieren, at the time, it was just another human whim, but to Himmel, that was the peak of his performance. He was expressing a love so deep it would take her 80 years to decode it. He faked a casual moment to hide a world-shattering confession because he knew she wasn't ready to hear it. He protected her from the weight of his love so she could continue her journey unburdened. That is the most real thing any human has ever done in fiction. It is the absolute pinnacle of emotional maturity, to love someone so much that you are willing to let them realize it long after you're gone just so they can learn the lesson at their own pace. This is the tragedy of the fake hero. He lived a life of beautiful, intentional lies so that Frieren could finally have a truth worth living for. He died a fake, but he left behind a reality that was better because he was in it. He proved that heroism isn't a status you're born with, it's a job you show up for every single day, even when you're unqualified, even when you're scared, and even when the legendary sword stays stuck in the rock. As Frieren walks towards Areola, the land where souls rest, she isn't going there to find a god, she's going there to find the fake who turned out to be the most real thing she ever knew. She's going to tell him that she finally gets it, that she finally sees him. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us watching. Maybe we don't need to wait for a sign from the heavens or a prophecy to start our journey. Maybe we don't need to be authentic in our flaws, but authentic in our aspirations. We are all faking it to some extent. We're all trying to be better parents, better friends, and better people than we actually feel like we are inside. And Himmel tells us it's okay. He tells us that if you play the part of a hero long enough, if you choose kindness, courage, and sacrifice over and over again, eventually the world won't be able to tell the difference. And more importantly, neither will you. The mask becomes the face. The performance becomes the soul. Himmel the Hero might have been a fraud, but the love he left behind is the only thing in the world that's actually real. So the next time you feel like an imposter, the next time you feel like you're just playing a part, remember the man with the fake sword. Strike a pose, pick up your own replica blade, and start walking, because the world doesn't need chosen ones. It needs people who are brave enough to fake being a hero until the job is done. Frieren is still traveling, Himmel is still waiting, and we are just getting started. Thanks for watching this deep dive into the most real fake hero in anime. If this resonating with you, if you've ever felt like you're faking your way through your own journey, leave a comment below. Let's talk about it. Hit subscribe if you want more deep dives into the philosophy of the mundane. And remember, pay attention to the small things, because as Himmel taught us, those are the only things that truly last. See you in the next one.